Oh, man. It's just. What's going on, folks, and welcome into Monkey Knife Fights preview show for Thursday Night Football. We got our guy with us, Jim Coventry. And Jim, just to start things off, I'm rattled. Our guy Donovan on the back end, one of our producers for the show, just comes in and tells me the Giants are going to slaughter the Bears this week. I'm rattled. I really don't know what else to say. I get it's a Thursday night show, but Donovan, I'm coming for you. Just had to get that out there.
You know, there's pay-per-view opportunities there.
Just Monkey Knife Fights ring.
Yes.
It's what, like a rough and rowdy style Monkey Knife Fight. Donovan and I step in. No, I think we'll leave it. I think we'll leave it to the football field, and we'll have a friendly side bet. There, I got to it, and I'm sure Donovan and I will come up with something. Giants versus Bears, the toilet bowl game of the week, and well, yeah, that's not going to be fun. But we have a fun one for Thursday Night Football. Do we ever? The undefeated Miami Dolphins 3-0 head to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Wow, Jim. If I had to select one team to be 3-0, odds are it wouldn't be Miami at this point.
No, definitely would not be. And I mean, they were getting blown out by the Ravens. And then all of a sudden, the crazy fourth quarter, they score 28 points and they win that game. And then the extreme heat on their home field where Buffalo players were falling to the ground. They were basically unable to really finish that game. And then, of course, Isaiah McKenzie not getting out of bounds. But there you have it. It's the NFL. And the Dolphins are 3-0 despite a very close possibility of being 1-2.
Yeah, no, it was such a wild game against Buffalo, as you said, players dropping left and right. And I think that's kind of where we need to start this conversation before we get into the props, is just short week, quick turnaround. And you're going into a hostile environment that is Cincinnati. You're going into the jungle.
The jungle.
And you just watched, I don't know how many players cramp up on Sunday. Triple-digit heat with the humidity. It's going to be tough to ask those Miami Dolphins to dig deep again, especially against a Joe Burrow. And if we look at his passing line on Monkey Knife Fight, 75.5. Well, he just threw for 275.5, pardon me. Well, he just threw for his 275 yards last week. Best performance of the season, 3 touchdowns, a passer rating over 114. If Josh Allen's throwing for 400 yards against you in a loss, I mean, well, just look what, their pass defense has not been up to snuff this season. I'm going to take the more on Joe Burrow, and I'm really concerned about the fatigue factor that the weather could have played for that Dolphins team on Sunday.
Connor, I want to go a little bit more into that, the effect it has while breaking then down the Joe Burrow more or less. So Miami's defense was on the field for 92 plays in that heat. So it wasn't just a typical heat game. Normally it's 65 plays. And of those 92 plays, 63 were pass attempts, which means their pass rushers were going for 63 plays. Their coverage guys were going for 63 plays. And you mentioned earlier, it was the heat, the humidity. It was also a huge emotional divisional game. So we come into that short week. They had to travel early because of the hurricane. They had to leave an extra day early to go to Cincinnati, one less day of rest and comfort. And 3 of their top 4 defensive backs were questionable on the injury report. They probably play, but there's an issue here. So I just wanted to point that out. Whereas Cincinnati, 72 plays, fine for their defense, but it was 66 degrees in New York and it was fine. So back to Joe Burrow and the point you made. Yeah, the pass rush is already worn down for Miami. They might have gas in the first quarter. They're not going to have it after that. The secondary players, same thing. In Miami, leads the league in man coverage defense at 49%. So Joe Burrow sailing over this number. First half, he might not. Second half, he is going to go crazy through the air.
Yeah, well, he's got a plethora of weapons just at receiver, right? Boyd went off last week for the most yards as a receiver. That's not even counting Jamar Chase and Higgins. So he has the weapons around him, and I don't see the Dolphins being able to keep pace with 3 targets and being able to shut all 3 of them down after a game where you brought up the emotional side and the emotional toll. I'm looking at the literal physical toll that game took on those players. And Yeah, it's going to take a lot to rally. As for Tua, so I think we're both with Joe Burrow on the more there. As for Tua, here's something interesting, a little storyline. University of Cincinnati student breaks in to the practice facilities and films the Miami Dolphins practicing, and apparently Tua looks terrible. So I'm going to take the less. His back is banged up. He threw for less last week. And however, he's played phenomenal football. I don't want to take that away. In all 3 games this season, he's had a triple-digit passer rating. But based off of just kind of the rumblings that have been presented to us over social media in this day and age, I don't agree with it. I don't think you should be able to get in and film the Miami Dolphins practice, but they did, and Tua was in obviously laboring. That was the big takeaway from the tape.
And that would be huge and interesting to know what the real deal is. Like last week, was it a concussion? Well, was it a back injury? I mean, the way he staggered, to me, I mean, that's like a no-brainer concussion. But if he's ginger in practice, well, then it may have been some other ailment. So that definitely is interesting. Now, we know what Cincinnati did last year when they played the Chiefs. They dropped 8 in the secondary. They forced them to dink and dunk them underneath. Now, you know, occasionally Tyreek Hill can still outrun a defense. We know that. But regardless, they're going to keep that blanket there, and they're going to hope that they're going to get rushed at their top of their front 3 or 4. And against Miami's line, they might have success. So I do think Tua will complete some passes here, but I'm with you. I think it's going less because that shell is going to make him be patient. And I think, like you said, if he's nicked up at all, a Tua at less than 100% is not a Tua Tagovailoa I really want to count on.
Now, one other storyline going into this game is Tyreek Hill versus Eli Apple. And I'm sure you've seen that interview by now where Tyreek Hill basically says, I'm going to take his lunch money and I'm going to beat him up and it's going to be bad. 6.5 receptions. Waddle's banged up. Tua is apparently banged up. We don't know if it's what I'm thinking. It's maybe something in the upper back spinal with a neck and something to do with a whiplash, almost like a post-concussion syndrome. That would make the most sense. But again, a lot of short, quick passes. I think Hill goes for more. Waddle's hurt, Tua banged up. Get the ball off fast, get it out of Tua's hand and Tua's playmakers.
And like we said a moment ago, I agree with you. And if Cincinnati's going to drop 7 or 8 and just put a shell out there and say, beat us underneath, yeah, the receptions are going to be there. The yardage might not be crazy, but Tyreek Hill, even when he saw 5 targets last week, they only threw 20 passes. He's getting a 25% snap share at least each week. So I'm not a target share, I should say. And so, yes, he is going to have over 6.5 catches here. The yardage might not be crazy, but I'm with him on the more as well.
I love it. I absolutely love the breakdown there. And Jamar Chase, the big wide receiver threat for the Bengals at 80.5 yards, just based off of my projection for Joe Burrow in this game, it's his number 1 target. I'm taking the more.
Yes. So I said earlier that Miami leads the league in the amount of man-to-man coverage, which that would be phenomenal for Chase and Higgins if they play man. But I also noticed in their games, they were game plan specific. There was a game where they were 29% man. There was a game where they were 73% man. So my guess is they're going to play some man because that's what they do, but they're going to play a lot of zone, I would think, especially with the defense probably being tired. But I think they're going to play man at times, and Joe Burrow is going to identify as soon as they see that, if they put somebody in motion and they know when the player stays home that they're, then they're not. But if he moves, I've got man coverage. There's going to be at least one big play to Jamar Chase in this game, and that alone probably gets him close to going over. I say more.
Yeah, at this point, taking the less on Jamar Chase it isn't advisable. He's really blossomed into quite the prospect and quite the talent. Joe Mixon at 65.5. Now, this is one where I'm still tossing and turning. This is a tough line because I'm projecting Joe Burrow to pass the football. I know Miami's defense is physically tired. They're banged up. Oh, man. It's just...
Which way you leaning?
I don't like... Oh, man. I genuinely don't know. I'm gonna take the more because I trust Mixon to be able to break one off. I think they're going to try to run the football and establish that. I just see the passing lanes open up. But hey, that D-line just battled last week. They held the Buffalo rush attack in check, but Yeah, I'll take the more. I'll take the more on
So
Mixon.
what I noticed, Connor, last year, it was week 13. That was when Cincinnati decided that Joe Burrow was past his knee issue. They became a pass-first team. Up until that point, it was a Joe Mixon-led offense. He had like a 12-touchdown season. And he was just piling up the touchdowns. Once they went pass-heavy in week 13, Joe Mixon, between week 13 last year and week 3 this year, has scored in one game. And in terms of his rushing, he has not gone over 3.5 yards per carry in any game. And this year, he's had like a 3-yard per carry total. He is going to need like literally 23 carries to go over 65 yards. He's not getting that many carries here because Cincinnati realizes they've got a pass defense on the ropes. They're going to probably just throw it a ton. Mix is only going to get about 12 to 15 carries, I think, here, because they're not going to need him. And I think his basic track record for now, it's like over 10 weeks. He's not that guy right now. I'm going less.
Yeah, he's not that guy, pal. Yeah, well, you just convinced me. Yeah, sure. I said less too, right? We're on the
yes,
take back.
100%. We're at it.
Yeah, well, for sure. I know Jaylen Waddle, we just mentioned him. I believe his line is it's actually fairly high for being somewhat banged up, and that's why I'm going to take the less. 71.5 receiving yards. He's been Miami's arguably, well, he has been Miami's most effective receiver this season. But if he's banged up, you have a fired up Tyreek Hill that's telling a young Tua to throw him the ball, and I want to burn Eli Apple. It's really shaping up to be Tyreek Hill's game.
You know, with Jaylen Waddle, he's had 2 really big plays that have moved the needle this season. And both of those were Tua making big throws. There was a 4th down throw where he put it in traffic and Waddle ended up going I don't remember how many yards. It was over 50 yards for a touchdown. And then he had a big play last week. Tua's apparently less than 100%. I don't think Tua's making those tight window throws this week. I think there's going to be more, again, more underneath stuff. I don't think there's much yardage after the catch. So I'm going to go less on Jaylen Waddle on that yardage total.
What about T. Higgins on the other side? Talking about the number 2 receivers for each team. T. Higgins, 5.5 receptions. That's a high number. But then I'm looking at this projected matchup, and it could be just there, comfortable enough. I want to take more on the passing game for the Bengals. That's where I'm comfortable. That's really the matchup that I'm looking for tonight. It's the Bengals passing game versus Miami's exhausted, both mentally and physically exhausted defense. So let's take the more on T. Higgins, not with as much confidence as the Jamar Chase pick, just because I'm not sure the target share will be there. I mean, Tyler Boyd has 10 receptions through the first couple of games, a pair of touchdowns, and had the most yards last week. I like Boyd to get involved. And actually, after we talk about T. Higgins, we'll bring up the Boyd number because I believe it's at 36.5. Brian, if you could bring that up after, that'd be awesome. And yeah, I like the more on that one, but T. Higgins, I'll take the more here as well.
So with T. Higgins, we have 2 alphas in Cincinnati, and we have to at least make an assumption. Coaches surprise us sometimes. We have to make an assumption they're going to go with a game plan that's going to take advantage of what Miami's problem is. And we've outlined that problem 3 times already. The defense is not going to be in great shape tonight. If I'm a coach of this team, Burrow's throwing the ball at least 38 to 40 times. And if he's throwing it 38 to 40 times and you have co-alphas, even if Jamar Chase sees 14 targets, T. Higgins is going to see 8 to 10. So he goes over that yardage total because especially in the second, third, fourth quarter, as that fatigue really sets in. Like in first quarter, not so bad. I'm going all over on the big time players. So give me the more in that Bengals passing offense.
Absolutely love it. And Donovan, can you just pull up that line I was talking about there for Boyd, because I think that's a really interesting spot as the third wide receiver. So it's up to 39.5. And this is one of those ones on Monkey Knife Fight that I like because Jaylen Waddle, he's going to play, but he's hurt. He's banged up. We already talked about this. We're taking the less on Waddle just due to injury purposes. And Boyd is part of that passing game. Over 100 yards last week. He's the slot receiver for Joe Burrow. The tight end is virtually non-existent in this offense. Boyd truly is that third option. I think he can get 40 yards easily. So I'm going to take the more on that. I think this is one of those matchups on Monkey Knife Fight where we're on the rundown that says, hey, go over your best bets. This is my best bet for Thursday Night Football on Monkey Knife Fight.
Oh, now that you call it a best bet, how do I throw cold water on that? Oh man, it may happen. So when the Bengals passing offense is going right, it really is all about the alphas. When Higgins and Chase have favorable matchups and it's working, we often see Joe Burrow won't go to a slot receiver. He does not go to him unless he has to. I think this is a game where he doesn't have to. If this was a defense I thought could slow down Chase or Higgins, that's where Tyler Boyd picks a slack up and gets the big plays. I don't think that they can hang with Chase and Higgins. So I think that we end up seeing Boyd with about 3 targets. I hope you're right and he goes over. I just don't think they're going to need to go to him, so they won't.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. And I like the breakdown. It's just I see holes in that defense, and eventually one of those deep shots from the slot could open up and he gets it in one play like he has in previous weeks. That's kind of where I'm going with that. As for the receptions, I completely agree with you. The target share does not favor him. Now, let's get into some touchdown dancing. The best part of the week, really. Oh man, nothing like a good touchdown dance. Get it started. Jamar Chase, punch him in, and Tyreek Hill. I think those are 2 of the pretty big names. And I guess T. Higgins, we kind of talked about him. Is that you? Okay,
mine. Ding, ding, ding.
So I'm going to I'll take T. Higgins off the board then and mix it up. I'll put Boyd in because I like that deep shot. I like the deep shot from the slot. I really, really think it's going to be there. We saw last week some speedy plays when they brought Diggs in from the slot. He was able to get open in the middle of the field. There's something about Boyd that's lighting my fire this week. So I'm going to go with that. There's my touchdown dance. There's my trio.
And your initial call, though, to me is perfect. We have the same one. I know you added in, which is great, Tyler Boyd. He easily could score. But yeah, I mean, Higgins and Chase, I keep saying it is about the alphas, and Miami's not going to be able to hang with them from the second quarter on, I don't think. And Burrow loves going to those guys, and he's going to just pound the alphas. And Tyreek Hill, like you said, he's got something to prove with old Eli Apple, and he will make sure he gets in the end zone, and he'll kind of will that to happen. And it could be on a run, it could be a short pass, it may not be a bomb, but he's getting in. So this is a good game to take the pass catchers. Whether you go in with Tyler Boyd, go with the pass catchers here. Forget the runners here.
Yeah, well, this is almost becoming, Jamar Chase is almost becoming that Cooper Kupp, right? The Cooper Kupp of the East Coast, because no matter what happens last week, hey, only 29 yards, but he found pay dirt. He got a touchdown. Week 1, 129 yards, got a touchdown. So he's one of those scorers. Now, one thing before we go here, Jim, I want to ask you, this line seems interesting. Miami's the 3-0 team. The Bengals are 1-2. Bengals are at home, so I guess that affects it a little bit. But the bookies, they're putting this at -4. Who do you have on Thursday Night Football?
Man, I have to go with the Bengals here. They're still in desperation mode. They're 1-2, but their season is far from saved. They've got to go on a bit of a run. I cannot state enough how significant this particular short week home field advantage is because of what Miami dealt with that 92 defensive play game. That is going to be massive. And keeping up with them in that scenario, that is going to be a tough one. So I do like the -4, but my best bet, Connor, is Cincinnati going over the team total of 25.5. They're going to go over that. And it may take a little third quarter, but they're going to sail over that number here.
Yeah, and a best bet for me in the overall game, I believe I saw it on Bet365. I'm not sure if that's available down in every state down south. Joe Burrow, 272.5, even money. Yeah, I'm all over that one. I was all over 275.5 on Monkey Knife Fight. You get an extra 3 yards, why not? But I gotta ride with the Bengals. The Bengals are the go-to squad in this situation. I don't care that Miami's 3-0. I'm with you, Jim. I think it's just they're coming off that game against Buffalo, emotional, just physical game. And now the Bengals are at home. Joe Burrow's coming off his best game of the season, and that's going to be that. Jim, let the people know where they can find all your great content.
You can find me at Jim Coventry NFL on Twitter. You can always find me on Sirius XM on Saturdays and Sundays on the Fantasy Sports Channel, 1 to 3 Eastern on Saturdays, 9 to 10 Eastern on Sundays. We usually do a live stream on the RotoWire YouTube page every Sunday morning, 2 hours before kickoff. But with the London game, we're doing it this Saturday at 11 Eastern. So catch me for that, and always on RotoWire.com.
Well, Jim, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Folks, I'm Connor Rowntree, and enjoy Thursday Night Football.